Hello, welcome to From the Couch, the boxing podcast, the second edition of this. I'm Paul McAllister. I'm here with John Wharton. You alright, John?
Yeah, yourself?
I'm absolutely fine. Thanks for listening to this, and shall we just jump into it, mate, and get started?
Yeah, let's go, yeah.
Let's go. Alright, the big fight we've got to talk about first is, of course, Floyd Mayweather, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty comprehensive victory on Saturday over Guerrero.
Yeah, classic. It was classic Mayweather, if anything. He didn't show us anything different, but he doesn't really have to show us anything different, does he, really, when you think about it?
No, that's it. We haven't had a fighter test him properly for about 5 or 6 years now, so...
Yeah, is that? Do you think that's down to he's just so good, or do you think he's not fighting the opponents who can give him tests?
I think it's down to his quality, to be honest with you. You know, we can always say, that a fighter, isn't picking the right opponents, but at the end of the day, he's beating everyone he put in front of him. And apart from 2 decisions, it's been pretty much straightforward for him. So.
Yeah, exactly. He's very rarely in a fight where it's controversial, is it? I think the last time was against Castillo.
De La Hoya, I'd say as well.
De La Hoya, yeah. But every other fight he's been in has just been completely one-sided, hasn't it?
Just been, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think many people pick Guerrero to beat Floyd Mayweather, to be honest, but I know a lot of people thought he'd give Floyd Mayweather a little bit more of a test, and that Floyd Mayweather, because he's getting on in age, and he's not fought in a while, and he's been to prison, a lot of people thought that would take the plug out of him, do you know what I mean? And he'd come back showing signs of decline, and he'd be slowing down, but I didn't see any of that, personally. If anything, I thought he looked better than ever. I thought he looked...
yeah. But the opponent was tailor-made for him. He didn't have to show him more than he needed to.
Yeah, I guess.
And for a year out, and I think this was as much a fight of testing the waters for Mayweather as it was for anybody else. I think he for the first time in his life, he seemed to have a little bit of doubt and the lack of self-confidence compared to usual.
It's a good point, that, yeah.
Prison sentence really did
humble him.
Give him a bit of a shock, so I think it was a good test for Floyd to see what he could do mentally and physically. I think we'll see him step up the quality of opposition.
I hope so, yeah. I agree with that. He needed to just get his feet back on the ground, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
get himself back in the ring and
put what happened behind him. Yeah, put it all behind him and kind of get on with his career. And
yeah,
I like that fact that it's kind of brought him a bit more back down to earth, sort of thing, because he did get really kind of he's always been confident and up himself, but it got to the point where a lot of people who did like him for it started to think he was taking it too far. And now that he's been humbled a little bit, he seems like a much calmer guy now, doesn't he? Like he's grown up a lot.
The interesting thing after the fight where Guerrero went over to congratulate Mayweather and the same to Floyd Senior, but Floyd Senior made a comment about Guerrero being the only guy with any class in that camp. And Floyd Jr. Seemed to be berating him for it, telling that we don't need that, everything's over now.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting to see.
Yeah, there's, kind of telling his dad to leave all the BS behind, because him and Floyd's dad and Robert's dad were fighting all the time themselves, weren't they? So
yeah, I thought we could have put that on as chief support.
I would have liked that as well, yeah. Who would you put your money on?
It depends.
Yeah.
If we do Marquez or Queensberry, I'd go for Floyd Senior. But if it's MMA, I think I'd go for Ruben.
He's still got the guns, hasn't he, Floyd Senior?
Yeah, he looks in great nick for 60-odd-year-olds.
I know, yeah, and his lungs aren't too good, but I wouldn't spill his pint, put it that way.
I don't think Floyd Senior's lungs are too good after some of the stuff he's been up to.
I know, yeah. Do you think Guerrero used the right tactics, or do you think he was a bit naive in trying to do that pressure style that loads of fighters try and use against Mayweather, and it just doesn't work? Do you think
I don't think he knew what to do. I don't think he had the necessary skill set to defeat Floyd. So, and he didn't know everything he tried didn't work. There was, I'm not sure there was a plan B, but every time he tried a variation on plan A, it didn't work. So, I don't think there was much more he could have done.
Yeah, I suppose.
He's not going to outbox him. He's not going to outspeed him in the hand speed state. So.
Yeah, I think Bernard Hopkins got it spot on. He was a plumber trying to do an electrician's job, really, wasn't he?
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly. Do you think that defeat will have done a lot of damage to Guerrero's career, or do you think he'll be okay and he'll get some more good fights?
I think he'll be okay. It wasn't a sustained beating. He wasn't,
He wasn't embarrassed, was he?
But it wasn't, You know, like he was come out of there with broken ribs, punctured lung and things. I think he'll do the world a good, actually. I think he'll come back a better fighter. He'll have learned a few things about himself there.
Yeah, there's still a lot of big fights out there for Guerrero, isn't there? There's
He's still get any welterweight in the world trouble, except for Mayweather.
Yeah, I agree with that. What about Mayweather? He says he's still got 5 more fights left. I'm not sure whether he'll have all 5 of those fights, but let's say he does. What opponents do you think are out there for him?
Canelo.
Canelo.
Maybe a rematch with Marquez, who looks a bit more comfortable at the weight now than
what he did, first time, yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. And you know, I mean, about that no one's really mentioned is Austin Trout.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good fight.
Got a man there with a bit taller than Floyd, hand speed, decent hand speed, probably not as quick as Floyd, and he's got good movements.
Yeah,
and some people feel like even with the knockdown, he defeated Alvarez in April.
It would be an easy fight to make, wouldn't it? Because I think they're both managed by Al Heyman.
That's right, yeah.
It would be.
Probably would be though. Trout, even though he lost to Alvarez, is still relatively unknown, even in America.
Yeah, there was a lot of people who before he fought Miguel Cotto had no clue who he was.
Yeah.
And he kind of exploded onto the scene a little bit.
Yeah, well that's it, you know, and he took his chance against Cotto and he's pushed himself right up into that reckoning now where big fighters are looking, you know, I mentioned them as possibilities.
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't be one for the casual fan, but I think it would be one for the purist.
Yeah, I agree with that. Austin Trout, there's also the angle of it would build up an eventual Floyd-Canelo fight, wouldn't it? Okay, Canelo's beat Trout, let's see if Floyd can beat Trout even better, sort of thing.
Look more impressive doing it, yeah.
Yeah, they can always push that angle, can't they, and slowly build it up.
I mean, as I say, I've said before to people, I can't see a fight between Alvarez and Mayweather coming off just because of the size difference on the actual night of the fight.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Canelo, he's massive, isn't he, for that weight?
He's a big light middleweight.
He's a big guy, and he comes in at like light heavyweight, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He comes in at least a stone and a half above his fight weight, and I don't think Mayweather puts any weight on at all.
No, he doesn't look like he puts anything on, does he?
No.
5 or 6 pounds, maybe, maximum.
Yeah, and Canelo, I'm not really sure if Canelo will even stay at 154 for much longer, to be honest. I think he's going to go up.
I think if he doesn't get a fight with Mayweather within the next year, I think he'll
go up, definitely, yeah.
I think a fight with Chavez Jr. would be an absolutely massive bout, especially in Mexico.
Oh, that would be
a massive bout for the Cinco de Mayo.
That would be huge, absolutely. That would be huge, and so would both the guys, because Chavez Jr. comes in really big as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That's another good one. A lot of people have a go at Mayweather saying, "Oh, he's a chicken for not fighting Canelo because it doesn't look like he's going to." But I don't blame him, to be honest.
Well, no, there's when you get a weight difference of
that big,
of about a stone, 16 pounds or something. You know, you've got the potential to do damage to your opponent there. And, and no one wants to see a fighter, seriously injured in the ring. So I'm sure Floyd doesn't see that for himself neither.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just because it's Floyd Mayweather. To be honest, people are trying to grab a stick to hit him with. If it was any other fighter who was avoiding Canelo, then he wouldn't have a go at him. You get what I mean? It's people. It's just because it's Floyd, and people like having a dig at him, like going mad at him.
I'm one of Floyd Mayweather's biggest critics. I'm not a fan of him at all. I don't like the way he conducts himself. I don't like the way he conducts himself. In the press conferences. And I admire him as a boxer. And even at times I've given him a bit of criticism towards him for his boxing, because I think I've let my dislike of him colour my opinion of him as a fighter.
Yeah.
But I think now it's time for me to hold my hands up and say, he is what he is.
Yeah.
He is one of the best fighters of the last 20 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's one of the best fighters ever, but he's definitely one of the best of recent times, isn't he?
Definitely, yeah,
Yeah. He's definitely a Hall of Famer, definitely.
I think so, yeah. I think he definitely will be, yeah. I think, if you look at it, there was a discussion on Twitter yesterday about who beats Floyd, and people were saying Chavez, but other people were saying that Mayweather, confounds Chavez, cuts him up, and by the end of the round, by the end of the fight, Mayweather wins. I think if you're talking at welterweight, there's 4 series contenders, I'd have him could beat him. Leonard, Hearns, Duran, and Pernell Whitaker.
I think all of those guys beat him, to be honest.
I think so, yeah. I don't think, but again, I think Duran beats him up.
Yeah.
Duran will fight dirty as well. I know Floyd can fight dirty as well, but I don't think there's not been many better in-fighters than Roberto Duran.
Yeah. Floyd, whether he sticks around or not, I don't know. I personally think he'll have maybe 2 more, because I can't see him having 5, whatever he says, because he's human at the end of the day. He's going to start slowing down. It's happened to Sergio Martinez, hasn't it? Everyone thought he was untouchable for a while, and look what happened to him in his last fight. He felt a bit, really, didn't he?
Yeah, well, Martinez has been held to bits at the moment by surgical tape and sutures.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be surprised if we even see him again now.
I would be, but the difference is Mayweather's never really had a serious injury.
Yeah, he hasn't, has he?
And Martinez, even in his prime, recent prime, Martinez was still getting caught.
Yeah.
Mayweather doesn't get hit.
Mm-hmm. He's looked after himself, hasn't he, Floyd Mayweather? Yeah. So
I think Mayweather's a young 36. I think he's got a little bit longer left than what people anticipate.
So you think he could have all 5 fights? Do you think?
I think he might. Yeah. The only problem is he's only fought 6 times in 6 years, so he's going to have to fight 6 times in 2.5 years, and that's the only problem. He doesn't like a busy workload, Floyd.
Yeah.
He likes to pick when he fights, and
he likes to take a good year off, doesn't he? Yeah, he said that himself, that he likes to let his body kind of recover and relax for a year. I think David Haye does a similar. David Haye for a while did a similar thing. He only fought once a year for a couple of years, didn't he?
I personally think boxers should be more active.
I do as well.
Fight 10 times a year, but you can fight 4 times a year.
Yeah, definitely. It's to get. I think to fight only once a year. It's to get the pennies up, though, isn't it? Because if he only fights once a year, more people are going to tune in to watch him.
Oh yeah.
I can understand why he does it from a business sense, but yeah, I prefer if he fought a bit more often as well.
No, I do like active boxers.
I do as well. Yeah. Going through his opponents again. Maybe Devin Alexander's going to fight Amir Khan by the looks of it, and don't be.
There's fighting Purdy, isn't he, in a week Saturday?
I think so, yeah, and
it looks like it's going to be Amir Khan, yeah.
Amir Khan. I'd like Lee Perry to win, but I don't see it personally. So
no, I don't think he's got enough. But
yeah.
I think he'll give a bit of counter to himself, Perry.
Yeah.
He's not just going to turn up for the payday. He'll give it. He'll have a go.
He'll go for it, yeah. But I think the plan is to have Alexander fight Khan towards the end of the year, and to have the winner of that face Floyd. Now, if Khan's the winner, then there's maybe Floyd will come over here to the UK to fight Khan. Do you think that's realistic?
No.
No.
I can't see Floyd wants to spend 3 or 4 weeks away from his home. So
yeah.
Probably Amir going over to Vegas, I think.
Yeah. If that fight does happen, how do you think it would go? Amir Khan versus Mayweather?
For 3 or 4 rounds, Amir Khan will look better against Floyd than most people have. He's got good hand speed, not much slower, if a bit slower than Mayweather. His footwork at times is excellent. So, I think he'll cause Floyd problems. Floyd won't necessarily be Howdy Cole would maybe not happen to be the counter puncher, but eventually Khan will get dragged into Floyd's fight, and Floyd will land one of those lead rights that he couldn't miss with against Guerrero. And I think when he hits him, he'll hit him and he'll shake him, and that's the end of the fight. Then because Khan will try to brawl.
Yeah,
they'll play right into Floyd's hands, and I think he'd be stopped in around about 7 8.
Yeah, again, I think I agree with that. I don't think it would be. I think Khan would do okay because, like you said, he's got a lot of advantages on Mayweather, hasn't he? He's younger. Yeah. You could argue he's faster. He's
taller.
He's taller. That's what I was going to say. And that's Floyd doesn't like fighting taller fighters.
But there's also what no one seems to have mentioned is I think Khan seems to be struggling to get down to junior welterweight.
Yeah, I think he's going to come up, isn't he?
The punch resistance goes.
Yeah, it's a good point. That he's
so if he's happy at 147, maybe he's not as chinny as people think. Maybe it is a weight issue, and his punch resistance is soft.
It's a good point that we've seen it before, haven't we? Because Chad Dawson was weight training against Andre Ward, and he went down a lot of times, didn't he? And you wouldn't necessarily say Chad Dawson's chinny, would you?
No.
No, so maybe it is the weight issue, yeah.
But on the other hand, it might not be. It might just be Abad's chin.
It might be, yeah. It's fair enough. But there's only one way to find out, and that's if he comes up.
Yeah, to put him in, yeah. But that'll be a good pension fight for it on that.
Yeah.
You'll get 4 or 5, maybe even 6 million for that.
Mm. I think so. I think the plan. I think that's Golden Boy's long-term plan, isn't it? They're going to have him face Alexander for the IBF title, and the winner of that will go on to face Floyd Mayweather. I agree with you. I think Amir Khan really should come up, because I think if he wants to stay at 140 to try and get a rematch with Garcia, then he's wasting his time, to be honest, because he's not the fighter he could be at 140. I don't really think Garcia would beat Lucas Matisse anyway, which looks like it might happen eventually if Matisse beats Peterson, which is not a sure thing. I think Khan should just cut his losses.
I think Garcia is interested in fighting Khan.
You don't think he is a rematch now?
No, and I think Garcia realised, if you watch the first, until that knockdown.
Yeah, he wasn't getting anywhere near Khan, was he?
Couldn't get near him.
Yeah, Khan was outclassing him.
And you look how he struggled with Judah. I don't think he's improved at all, Garcia. I'm not a big fan of him, truth be told. He's beaten his one decent opponent is Amir Khan. And if you look at it, he had his eyes shut when he landed that punch.
Yeah, it was one of those punches where 99 times out of 100 he won't land it.
He beat up a 64-year-old Eric Morales.
Who was roided up, who was on drugs, yeah.
Yeah, he was probably, he was actually being held together by the steroids. And then he struggled badly with a faded, I think Judah's over the hill.
I do as well, to be honest.
And if you look how Khan handled Judah.
Yeah, Khan handled Judah no problem at all, didn't he?
Yeah.
So again, no, I think Khan should kind of just, for now, let that go and cut his losses and come up.
And see if he'll fight him at 147.
Yeah, maybe if Garcia comes up somewhere down the line, get it then. But I think for now he should let it go and go up to 147, where he will be a better fighter, I think, because he'll be stronger at the weight. He'll be able to not really damage his body so much with the weight drain. He'll just feel stronger, and like you said, maybe his chin might hold up a bit better.
Some of those shots he was being hit with by Diaz were grazing shots, they weren't full-blooded shots.
Yeah.
And that's what made me think it might be a weight issue.
Yeah, his legs might just be weak. It happens to a lot of fighters, mightn't it?
Yeah. And
a hit right round any part of the head, and his legs would just go. Yeah, I think people jump on Khan for being chinny a bit too much, because he stood up to Maidana's shots, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
He landed that one shot, like, was it the 10?
It was, yeah.
That really. And if he hadn't been against the ropes, would have put him down. But, he fought back there, and he did well to not go down.
Yeah. I don't think he's got a really, really bad chin. I just think he's not got a great chin. He's got a kind of mediocre chin, and the weight does make it worse.
Yeah.
I agree with that, yeah. So, if Khan fights Mayweather down the line, I'd like to see it happen, because I'd much rather he fought Khan than he fought Alexander, or he fought, and again, one of these pointless fights, because Alexander versus Mayweather, I'd rather watch GMTV than watch that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not going to be an exciting fight, is it? Or even...
No. And even if he dominates Khan, at least Khan will guarantee you some excitement, won't he? It'll be worth watching.
Yeah, Khan's... You can never say... Khan's very rarely in a bad fight.
Very rarely, yeah.
I think the last forum fight he was in was against...
McCluskey, maybe?
Andreas Kotelnik.
Yeah, but again, he boxed very, very well in that fight, didn't he?
He boxed the way he should, but he boxed him all the time. But he's as soon as he gets tagged, he wants to get in there and show that he's tougher than them.
Yeah, he's a bit too ballsy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully that fight happens. Another fight we'll talk about now. Do you think we should bother talking about Klitschko? Just quickly.
Yeah, we may as well.
Just quickly. Another standard win for Klitschko. Yeah. I watched it. It was a bit of a waste of time, because we didn't see anything that was any different. It was just jab, jab, grab. Klitschko hits the guy falls down. Klitschko raises his hand. it's over.
Basically the story of Klitschko's decent career.
Yeah. David Haye mentioned something really, really interesting in the punditry, didn't he? He said the longer the fights go, the more money Klitschko makes. So if a fight goes, let's say 8 rounds instead of 4 rounds, Klitschko makes more money. So
that'll be the TV deal.
Yeah, and for that reason, he could have taken Pianetta out at any point he wanted to there. I remember watching it, and he was playing with Pianetta really. I mean, he waited. I didn't really believe David Haye when he said that at first, but then when I watched the fight, I told myself, you know what, he's absolutely spot on when he says that. Klitschko is dragging this out on purpose, sort of thing.
Yeah,
because
I thought so. I mean, I was thinking, why don't you just take this guy out of here?
Yeah.
All credit to Pianetta because
he tried, didn't he? He had a go.
And he had a go as well. He wasn't just there to absorb Klitschko's shots. For a couple of rounds, he had the idea of trying to get in there and.
Which is the right idea, yeah.
Trying to get to that weak chin of his.
Get on the inside. He landed a couple of shots on Klitschko, which is more than a lot of his other recent opponents have done, haven't they?
I can't think of something with David Haye. David Haye didn't land a punch on, did he?
No. I don't think Tony Thompson did very well the second time either, did he?
No.
I can't even remember who Klitschko fought before that.
Mark Mormer.
Yeah, the French guy. Couldn't say his name.
Just a cruiserweight.
That fella turned up for money. Pianetta, fair play to him. He was outclassed, but he came to have a go. But
that's his one shot. That's probably his only shot at the world title.
Yeah, he won't get near it again.
He'll end up being an opponent for the likes of Kubrat Pulev and
Povetkin or someone.
People like Marco Huck want to step back up to heavyweight.
Yeah.
He'll end up being used as that kind of opponent.
Yeah. Speaking of Marco Huck, he's going to fight Ola Afolobi again, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think that could be fight of the year.
Again, yeah. I mean, Afolobi's a great fighter to watch at times.
Yeah, I think he's very, very underrated.
His knockout of Enzo McAnally was superb. He knocked him out with one of the best shots I've seen in a long time.
Because he's not based here in England, he doesn't get a lot of coverage. But I think he can definitely beat Marco Huck. I felt he won the last fight personally.
I thought he just shaded it. So if it was as close as that in Germany, you can guarantee that Afolabi won.
Yeah.
So
I
think he's got good. Huck's a good fighter to watch.
He is, yeah, definitely.
He's not your normal German type of fighter.
I think he beat Povetkin personally.
Definitely. I thought he did, yeah. I'm not a big fan of Povetkin,
I'm not either, to be honest.
He's very limited, and he's one of them. He's been protected, and he's been supposed to be fighting Klitschko, but whether that comes off or not, because he's signed to fight the Polish guy Velarchek, hasn't he?
Well, what I've read is again that massive purse bid won the something like $23 million.
€23 million, yeah.
Yeah, that won the purse bid, and the standard split for a champion and a challenger is 75-25, isn't it? With Klitschko getting 75% and Povetkin getting 25%. Now I read.
Would that change though with the fact that Vladimir's the super champion, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Povetkin's the world champion. The
regular champion or whatever that is, yeah. It's what he's got to pay the belt essentially, isn't it? I think it works in Klitschko's favour, the 75-25, but the thing I've read is Povetkin wants 50% or he won't take the fight. And a lot of people saying, it's been ordered, it's a mandatory, it's a purse bid, it's got to happen. I'm not really sure. I think not even that. I think they'll just walk away from the table, sort of thing. They'll find a way around it because Povetkin's people who are protecting him, they don't want him anywhere near Klitschko. Come on, I think Klitschko would end his career personally.
Povetkin's just circling now, waiting for the Klitschkos to retire.
Yeah, exactly.
But even when they retire, he won't be the dominant force. I actually see the likes of Eddie Chambers, even Tony Thompson, Tyson Fury, and Price, and obviously David Haye, all being able to beat Povetkin quite comfortably.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of him at all.
No, like you said, he's very, very one-dimensional, very limited, isn't he? He lost against Marco Huck, who was a cruiserweight, but had a bit more skill than him, and he got lucky in Russia. And if that's the fight where if the fight did happen with Klitschko, it's got to happen in Russia, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
because if it doesn't happen in Russia, there's no chance Povetkin would ever get a decision. But even if he did fight in Russia, it wouldn't go to a decision because I think Klitschko would just
Klitschko
absolutely
stop him in about 4 or 5 rounds.
ruin him. Yeah, it doesn't
I
matter.
think it's personal. I don't think Klitschko particularly likes Povetkin.
Yeah, I think he doesn't want to even deal with him because Bert Bonte, is that his name? The guy who deals with Klitschko?
Bernard Bonte.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. He said that even with the massive purse, Klitschko was still not even interested in the fight, really.
No.
Because that's just how much time he's got for Povetkin, doesn't even want to deal with him.
He's, as you said earlier, he's a paper champion.
He's a paper champion who kind of no one's really interested in,
Yeah.
if you get what I mean. Another heavyweight bout that was mentioned today, actually, I read it before. Apparently Frank Warren wants Deontay Wilder to come over and fight Derek Chisora. What do you think of that?
It's an interesting one. I've never seen a fight. I've never seen punches thrown the way Wilder was throwing them against Harrison.
He was like a windmill, wasn't he?
He was coming in from his knees, you know. And
Yeah.
if he tries to do that to Chisora, he's going to be in for a bit of a rude shock.
Yeah.
Chisora won't let him throw his punches from distance. Chisora will be up there in his face. You know, I don't like. Sorry, I don't like Deontay Wilder. I don't like looking at Deontay Wilder for when you see his legs that thin. For 6'7" heavyweight, he's very thin.
He is, yeah.
And he looks fragile. And I think he's been decked as well at least once.
Yeah, by a big fat guy. What?
Yeah. So, you know, the real heavyweight, you know, if he fought someone like Chisora, I know Chisora's not really by heavyweight standards a big puncher. But I'd fancy Chisora to take him out there. I think Wilder's the weakest of all the heavyweight prospects.
I do as well, personally.
He's protected as well. You know, you compare his record to the likes of Fury and even David Price. He hasn't fought anybody. Price has beaten the likes of John. I think John McDermott has put up a good fight against Wilder.
Yeah, Price fought some tough men like Skelton and McDermott and Sam Sexton, all solid fighters. And I don't think Deontay Wilder's best opponent is Audley Harrison. And that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, what I've heard about Deontay Wilder is that he's not been in boxing very long, sort of thing. I think he was a football player or something.
American footballer, yeah.
And he's one of these guys who his American football career didn't work out. He's gone to the gym for a few sessions, found that he can punch a bit, and he's decided, you know what, I'll go into boxing because there's money in that. But he hasn't got a fighter's mentality or something like that. And if he was decked on the chin, then he could go down very, very easily because he'd been dropped by a guy who looked like Butterbean, and the fight wasn't even on the TV. So that tells you the caliber of opponent, and he still went down. And it wasn't a flash knockdown; he looked hurt as well. There's pictures of it.
Yeah, I've seen the knockdown. If the guy the guy who we thought was a fighter, that fight would have been over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the heavyweight division is quite interesting at the moment, below the actual championship level.
Yeah, that's why everyone can't wait for the Klitschko to retire. Because
you've got Haig coming back in as well. You've got Pulev. You've got Manuel Shaw. You've got the old guys who are still in there, like Chris Arreola. I know he lost to Stevens last week, or the other week. But Arreola's still a good opponent for these young lads coming up.
Yeah, he's a good measuring stick, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Derek Chisora would beat Deontay Wilder as well, to be honest. A lot of people, I think, are writing Chisora off because he's lost quite a few fights and he didn't look very good last time out, but I don't think that's fair, to be honest. When he fought Tyson Fury, he wasn't motivated, he was out of shape, he wasn't even 50% of what he can do.
No, if you'd been up for it against Fury, you'd have beaten Fury.
I think so, as well, definitely, because Fury was a much worse fighter then than he is now. When he fought Helenius, who was one of the worst robberies I've ever seen. Absolutely battered Helenius. Then he fought Vitaly Klitschko. Okay, he didn't win against Klitschko, but he didn't disgrace himself by any stretch of the imagination.
No, he showed the blueprint for beating Klitschko is get up close and,
He was the first fighter to make Vitaly look his age, wasn't he?
Yeah, because he came in with those, he was just throwing those left hooks to the body and trying to hit him. If he had a bit more hand speed, that fight would have been a bit different, I think.
Yeah. He fought David Haye, and I don't think the fight with David Haye was as one-sided as people make out, because the knockout was so brutal. But
I thought Haye was on the verge of going before that.
I thought that as well. I was watching that fight with my brother, who's only a casual fan.
By the end of the 4th round.
Yeah, my brother even said to me, "Hang on, David Haye looks knackered here. It looks like this Chisora's getting to him."
Yeah.
And if David Haye had 10 bombs, he hit Chisora at the very last one, the 10th bomb. You get what I mean? Because I think if that fight had gone a little bit longer, Chisora would have got to him then. You get what I mean?
He was starting to look as ragged as he did. I don't know whether you've seen his first pro defeat to Carl Thompson back in September 2004.
I've seen it, I think, yeah.
It's he didn't lose by the fact that he got knocked out. I mean, I know he did, but
he kind of unravelled.
Tiredness.
Yeah, he
absolutely drained and exhausted.
Yeah, and that was beginning to happen to him. Chisora, so
looked ragged as he was against Thompson, yeah.
What I'm saying is Chisora is absolutely no mug. He's not an Audley Harrison. He's not going to be a fella who Deontay Wilder's just going to turn up to beat like he did with Harrison. I kind of gave Harrison the big Mr. Big Shot treatment on the last one. We were all saying, "Oh, we think he's going to beat Wilder. Wilder's a hype job," and I still think Wilder's a hype job. But again, it was only Audley Harrison. At the end of the day, Chisora is far better than Harrison, and he's far harder to hurt, far harder to beat. And I hope that fight happens. Frank Warren gets that fight on, but I don't think it will, because I don't think Golden Boy will send him anywhere near.
Well, I mean, the other really good fight for Chisora is David Price. Sorry.
Yeah, that fight was offered as well, but Price went for Thompson instead.
Went for Thompson, but that fight with Price is still very much on the agenda.
On the radar, yeah.
I was talking to David Price last week, and he's interested still in fighting.
I think that's a very, very close fight, to be honest, as well.
No, I don't know. I think if you look at the problems Chisora did have with Klitschko, it was getting inside that jab.
It was, yeah.
And I think he'll have the same problems with Price. Price will break him up.
Yeah.
Stop him in around about 9 or 10 rounds.
I guess that's hard to argue with, but my point is, Matt Skelton gave Price a couple of problems, didn't he, in that first round? Because he charged.
Yeah, well, if you look at it then by the second round,
he found his feet, didn't he? But
Price worked him out and realised that, that he was a bit,
What
Price is a bit of a throwback. That knockout he suffered against Tony Thompson was a freak. It landed on his neck and on his ear. So it's always going to be one of those punches. Always, no matter who lands it, will knock the other person down. It's the carotid. It's probably occluded the carotid artery slightly.
I suppose. He perforated his eardrum, didn't he, on the night, which took all his balance away.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. Chisora, though, he's like Skelton in the sense that he just charges at his opponent and he lays on the chest. And apart from Matt Skelton, has Pricey really fought anyone like that? Do you think
Not really, no. But, this is why the fight would be a good fight.
Yeah, it would give Price something new to deal with, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if Price handles him well enough, Price is definitely in
the heavyweight mix.
For a world title fight, he's definitely potentially going up to that level.
What do you think of David Price and Tony Thompson 2? A fight I'm planning on going to, and I can't wait for it. But what do you think of it? Will it be different?
Yeah. I thought that Price didn't. In that first round, when he was jabbing him, keeping him at a distance, he was using the double jab and the right hook.
Yeah.
And he was keeping Thompson off balance and unable to get any of his work. In the second round, he started to get overexcited, I think, with the crowd, and he tried to please the crowd. He shortened the distance.
Definitely, yeah.
Dropped his left hand, and once he shortened the distance, he fought into Thompson's hands, especially an experienced, wily old fighter like Thompson, who knows he's been around. So I think if he fights again, I think Price will he'll double up on the jab, use the right hook, and occasionally throw the left just to keep him off his guard. And I think in the end that'll start to show.
Yeah.
I think by about round 5 or 6, he'll land one of his big bombs, and we won't see Thompson get up from it.
Yeah, Thompson's still old, isn't he? A lot of people would try to say, it was too big a step up for Price from domestic level to world level. I don't think so.
I don't know, because if you look at how easy that first round was.
It was, yeah, exactly. Thompson, I thought, personally, looked very, very slow one night. He wasn't very light on his toes.
No, so. That's it. And I think Price is better than what people have been giving him credit for, I think. He's suffered that defeat, but that defeat, I think, could be the best thing for him.
Yeah. You learn more from defeats than you do from victories, don't you?
Exactly, you know, the late great Manny Stewart used to say that, you know, he prepared to see fighters lose a fight because you see what they're made of then.
Exactly, yeah. I agree with the sense that I don't think he's going to go at it all guns blazing to start with like he did last time.
No.
He'll take his time this time. He'll try and grind Thompson down because Thompson's 41, 42.
He'll be 42, I think, by the time
Yeah,
he fights.
he's not a young fella. I don't think Thompson can go 12 rounds personally.
No.
When it gets to the second half of the fight, past the 6th or the 7th, I think Thompson will start to puff and blow. He'll get tired, and Pricey will. That's when Pricey will kind of go for him when he knows that there's nothing that's going to come back, because he's not going to charge for Thompson straight away because he knows Thompson can hurt him. He knows Thompson can punch, and he's going to empty Thompson's tank before he even dares try it. So he's best keeping him on the end of the jab, grinding him down, making Thompson kind of lose heart or lose interest. You get what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he'll say the word is resistance down and stop him. But I think he'll be a bit earlier. I think he'll be around about 5 or 6.
I think it will be maybe 8 or 9, personally.
Yeah.
I think it'll be one of those things where he could go for it in round 5 or 6, but he'll be a bit too cautious to go for it that early. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'll have to be absolutely sure when Thompson's kind of out on his feet due to exhaustion before he'll go for it. Because I really don't think Thompson's fit enough to go a full fight, because he's getting on a bit. He's not as fit as he once was. I've heard he's coming in better shape than he was last time, because he was quite overweight last time. But even if he trims down a little bit, I still don't think he's got the engine that Pricey's got, because even though people say David Price needs rounds and stuff, he barely gets any rounds in, how do we know he can go 12 rounds? David Price is very, very fit as a guy. He does a lot of running, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Apparently, he's always on the track. He's always working out. He's a very, very in shape person. You get what I mean? And he's not going to get knackered as quickly as Thompson would anyway. And I think Thompson at this point in his career, he's only coming for the payday. I think that he came for the payday last time, and he got lucky, sort of thing. And he's squeezed a few more paydays out of it. He'll come over for the money.
Fair play to him,
Exactly, fair play to him. But it'll be one of those things where, once it gets to a certain stage of the fight, Thompson's just going to think, oh, you know what, I'm losing interest here. And he'll get tired, and maybe if Price doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if Thompson doesn't get off his stool after a round. Maybe
lose heart.
Maybe round 8 or 9, if he's took a bit of punishment, if he's maybe not, he may have been knocked down, but he gets back up, or he's taken some big punches, he'll sit on his stool and he'll kind of say to his corner, you know what, I don't want this anymore. Let this guy have it, sort of thing.
Well, possibly, yeah. Especially if, as you say, he is only there for another payday. But
I don't want to disrespect him,
because he's quite a proud fighter. So.
Yeah, I don't want to disrespect him, but I personally think that that's what will happen. To be honest, because I think people are being writing David Price off far too much. To be honest.
But I think that's better for David.
Yeah.
That'll allow him to go back under the radar. Let everyone focus on Tyson Fury and his clan antics, And then when they fight, there's no doubt about it. If they have a fight, which is in doubt because I'm not sure Fury wants to fight, but if they do fight, there's only one winner.
Really? Do you think?
Fury's open for that big right hand, and that's Price's signature punch.
Yeah,
and if Cunningham can put him down, Price will put him through the canvas.
I know. I don't think it's a no contest, but I would still lean towards Price. Do you know,
I think it's certain fighters are made for each other.
Yeah.
And I think Fury's made for Price.
Mm.
I don't, he won't be able to rough up Price the way he roughs up those blown up cruiserweights or the second-rate fighters or taxi drivers.
Yeah.
And once he realises he can't bully someone, I don't think Fury will fancy the job.
He's still improving though, Fury, isn't he? So I think if he fought now, I'd lean to.
I think he is. I think that's a bit of a misconception.
You don't think he is?
No.
No.
I don't think he's got the necessary boxing foundation to improve.
It's interesting that
I think
I think he's far better than he was 18 months ago when he fought.
2.5-3 years ago.
Yeah, when he fought Chisora, I mean, I think he's far better now than he was then.
But he fought Chisora, and his opponent, the opposition, the quality of opposition's not got any better than that. He's fought the likes of Martin Rogan, Nevin Pajkic, Steve Cunningham, Kevin Johnson, who I've never. Them two were that was just a dance contest between them two.
Yeah, I thought he showed he's shown little improvements over time because he's lost some weight. He moves around the ring a lot faster. I think he does move, even though he's a big guy like Price is.
His movement's a bit better.
Yeah, I think he moves around the ring better than David Price.
His weaknesses are even being more magnified now as he steps up even ever so slightly.
Yeah.
He still keeps his hands low. He doesn't seem to be able to, he doesn't seem to be able to slip a punch.
He loses concentration, doesn't he?
That's it, yeah. And I think if he fights a Hay, a Price, a Klitschko, any of them,
he loses.
He loses, yeah, and he loses badly as well. He doesn't, losing over points. He loses and he loses heavily.
Maybe at this point in time, but
that's why he's avoiding the likes of Price.
Maybe at this point, but I still think there's a lot more to come from Tyson Fury personally. Have you heard that he might? I don't know if this is just him being having a joke, but there's talk of him maybe going over to MMA to fight the UFC champion. I think
Velasquez.
Yeah, I think he said it a couple of times, and he's only been messing sort of thing. But over the weekend, Dana White, who runs the UFC, kind of said, "All right, if you're serious, if you really, really are serious, then we can get it done." And I've read something today where it said there was Fury saying, "Yeah, I am serious. Let's do it," sort of thing. So it probably won't happen, but
that's the end of his boxing career.
It would, yeah. It is probably just a laugh, but
all right, fighting, thinking that that this fella's going to stand there and try and let him jab, but this fella's going to go straight for his legs.
Yeah.
And take him down.
Yeah. So.
So
that's something we'll keep an eye on. Yeah. It'd be funny if it did happen.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of Fury. I think he's a clown. I think he's bad for the sport. I think his comments, homophobia, some of his comments are way, way out of order.
Yeah, he takes it too far sometimes, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a laugh and sometimes it's not.
No.
Definitely, but I wouldn't write him off just yet as a contender because I think he's showing a lot and he's still got a lot to learn and improve because he's very, very young for a heavyweight, isn't he?
He's young. He's only 24.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think this is the first one we've disagreed on.
we can't agree on everything.
No, I really don't. And it's not just because he's a rival for Price.
Yeah.
Even before Price turned professional, when Fury was fighting in 2007 on ITV.
I remember that, yeah.
I never ever rated him then.
Yeah.
But he's done well through the art of self-promotion.
Well, yeah, I'd much rather fight Fury than the Klitschko's who are just dull as dishwater, to be honest.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, he's good for the sport.
He needs some colour, yeah.
He promotes interest in the sport. And usually, he is quite exciting, he'll take a dig and he'll give a dig.
Yeah.
So, I don't completely dislike him, but I only watch to see him get beat.
A lot of people, I think a lot of people agree that he's kind of a knockout waiting to happen.
Yeah.
If he was knocked out, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. But I don't agree with this. If he did lose, I think it wouldn't be the end of the world because look at Pricey. It could be the best fate. It could be the making of him, couldn't it? If he does lose, he could learn from it, like we're hoping David will.
I don't think possibly, but I'm not sure Fury's got the intelligence as a boxer.
Yeah.
To take that into under his take it in his stride, and I think Fury's all about that sort of the myth and the persona rather
big tough guy act. Yeah.
Yeah. And once that myth's been punctured, I think that'll be the end of him as a serious contender.
Well, I hope not because I still want to see him and Price fight, and I'd like to see I think Tyson Fury, like you said, he takes it too far, but I think he's colourful, isn't he? And
yeah.
you need colour in the heavyweight division because it's just dull.
Where, the majority of the fighters, are like Klitschko, robots, it is a bit of a breath of fresh air. Yeah.
It's all down to taste, isn't it? But yeah, I still think Tyson Fury, he's got a lot to show, Tyson Fury. I'm not going to... I think he will win a world title, personally, but I guess I've not got much to go on with that, so We'll agree to disagree on
No,
Tyson
no,
Fury.
that's not. I don't think that's a ridiculous statement as you seem to think. I think it would be.
No. What I mean is,
No, I mean what I mean is while I don't particularly rate him, I still rate him more highly than the likes of Povetkin.
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
You know, if Povetkin can win a world title, you know,
Tyson Fury can, yeah.
You know, even though I don't particularly like him, from a British point of view, I'd like to see another British world champion, even if it is him.
Yeah, we agree on that. Speaking of maybe of perhaps future British world champions, Jamie McDonnell, he's fighting, isn't he?
Yeah, he's fighting on Saturday against Julio Cejar of Mexico.
Julio Cejar, yeah. I think that could be. I think I'm more interested in that fight than I am Ricky Burns and Gonzalez. I'm probably going to watch Ricky Burns because I've got Sky and I haven't got prime time. But
Yeah,
I think
£15 to watch it.
yeah, I'm not paying that. I'm not Jamie McDonnell's mum or his brother.
Yeah.
They're the only people who are going to watch it, really, are they?
I think anyone who wants to pay, desperately wants to watch that fight, will already be at the stadium.
Yeah, they're not going to sell anything. How big's Doncaster Stadium?
It's Keepmoat, yeah, the Keepmoat in Doncaster, yeah.
Do you know what the capacity is? Do you know what the capacity is?
It's about 16,000, I think.
They're not. Yeah, 16,000. I don't even think we'll get 1,600 people paying to see that. And that's not a knock on Jamie McDonnell. I just think
The sales are going quite well because he's popular in.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying he won't sell the arena now, but what I mean is from the people at home watching it on prime time.
Oh no, he won't sell any. He won't sell.
I don't think he'll get many people watching him on prime time. Like you said, the people who watch him will be the people in the arena because. And it's not a knock against Jamie McDonnell because I like him. It's just he's not a massive name, isn't he? Is he?
No,
and
but if boxing was on terrestrial TV,
yeah, he would get a lot of views, wouldn't
he? Be a much bigger fighter because he's he's a good fighter to watch.
He's a good fighter, yeah, but he's one of these fighters where he's in a bad position because his promoter hasn't got a TV deal.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because I'd have loved this fight to be on Sky, but it's clash with Ricky Burns, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Ricky Burns is a much more well-known fighter than he is. So
Burns is an established world champion, and
yeah, if it's a choice between watching Ricky Burns for free on Sky Sports 1 or paying £15 to see Jamie McDonnell, you're not going to get many people who are going to pick second. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So that's this Cejar guy. He's a big puncher, isn't he? He's got a big knockout record.
He is, yeah. He's got explosive power with either hand. His body shot, but his left hook to the body, from what I've seen, it's a cracking little shot. But he's also, as well as right hook, and he does his right hook's also worth watching as well.
He looks a very, very solid champion, doesn't he? He's not going to be a guy who's going to just come over and give his belt to McDonnell and then just go home.
But if McDonnell can move and jab for 12 rounds without getting drawn into too much of a battle,
he's got a very good chance of getting the decision, I think.
Winning,
yeah. This fight reminds me a lot of, do you know Ricky Burns when he first won the world title?
Against Martinez.
Against Roman Martinez, I think he was called.
Yeah.
Not many people were giving Ricky Burns much of a chance, were they? Even though it was in Scotland.
He got decked in the second round as well, didn't he?
Got decked. He got decked very, very early, and everyone thought, "Oh no, he's got no chance. This fight's going to be over." But again, he got up from that and he fought the fight of his life, didn't he? He fought out of his skin.
And he hasn't looked back since.
Exactly. And how do we know the same will happen with McDonnell? How do we know he's not saving a really special performance for a really special night?
Exactly, yeah. Every fighter's got one great night.
Yeah.
And it's all comparative, it's all relative, but I mean, as you say, this Cejar, I don't think he's been in the same calibre of opponent as McDonnell.
Yeah.
He does hold a win over WBO junior bantamweight champion, who's Carvajal. Carvajal's one of those fighters who lost a lot before he won. But McDonnell's got an impressive win over the Belgian fighter Jamoy, Stefan Jamoy, the current European champion.
Yeah, McDonnell, he hasn't got this fight the easy way, has he? He's prepared brilliantly.
He's defended his European title 5 times.
He was the Commonwealth champion, the British champion, and the European champion. He's fought some solid fights leading up to this, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he's got, as you say, he's gone about it the old-fashioned way, and that's more power to him.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he's not one of these fellas who he's been fighting a load of only domestic level opponents, and then he's suddenly made the big jump like some fighters do. He's gone along it the right way. He's very, very gradually improved his level of opposition.
Yeah, well, he lost, 3 or 4 years ago, he lost 2 fights in a row.
Yeah.
He lost to Chris Edwards.
Yeah.
He lost the title to Chris Edwards. He was a junior bantamweight, the vacant. It was the first time the junior bantamweight title had been fought at British level. And then he lost to Lee Haskins in his next fight. And then he's bounced back from that with, I think it's something like 12 straight wins.
Yeah.
And it's not just, as you say, he's gradually been improving the level of his opposition and gradually improving the way he is. And at the moment, he's the dominant bantamweight in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. I like Jamie McDonnell. I've watched him a couple of times. He's very, very slick and very, very slippery, isn't he? And he's good at moving around his opponents and outboxing them. And that could be just what he needs for this fight, because he's not got a lot of power. That's his weakness, isn't it? To be honest, he's not. If he gets drawn into a fight, then there's only going to be one winner. But again, it's a good thing that this fight's in Doncaster, because he won't need the knockout to win.
No.
Because if it wasn't in Doncaster, he'd need the knockout more than likely, and he wouldn't get the knockout because he doesn't have the power in his fists. But there's a very, very good chance that if it goes 12 rounds and he's not decked, then he's going to get the decision. I think that's surely got to be his game plan, to stick and move and to have Sajar chase him all night.
Yeah, well, that's what. You never know. I mean, look at Ricky Burns. No one thought Ricky Burns had punch power, but look at him now, and he's punching for fun. Some fighters, as they improve the training regime, and they can dedicate more time to training rather than being part-time fighters, part-time workers. They suddenly develop the technique to punch. So you never know. He's had a good training camp for this, the longest training camp he's had. Very unlikely, but he could develop a punch.
I hope so, because I'd love it if he won. I really would. Personally, me gut tells me that this Sajar, he's gonna force a stoppage. Personally, I think
he'll break him down.
Yeah, I think maybe a body shot or something.
Yeah, he reminds me very much of a featherweight who came over from Mexico in '94 called Goyo Vargas.
Yeah, he
fought Paul Hodgkinson in Dublin and stopped him in 9 rounds to take Paul Hodgkinson's WBC featherweight title. He's very much that kind of come forward, but intelligent pressure, not just plough forward.
Yeah.
And if he has anywhere near the career that Vargas has had, he'll have done well. Vargas has fought the likes of Kevin Kelly and Floyd Mayweather as well, and lasted the distance with Mayweather.
Yeah.
Back when Mayweather was a junior lightweight, I think.
Yeah. I think that's what McDonnell's hoping for, that he'll be kind of one of these fighters who just comes forward without thinking.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But I think he's got...
I don't think he is.
No, I think he's got a bit more upstairs than that, hasn't he?
He cuts off the ring well as well.
Cuts it off. I think he'll get to McDonnell. I think McDonnell will do well, and he'll win some rounds. And it wouldn't even surprise me if he's ahead on the scorecards at one point. But I think maybe in the 8th or the 9th, he's going to get caught with a body shot, and he's going to go down. And because he's in his hometown and he's proud, he'll try and fight on. But I think maybe the referee will jump in, or his corner will throw in the towel.
Yeah, for a while,
yeah.
That's a fair guess at it, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love it if he did win, because we want some more British world champions. And if he does win, then it'll be a great win, because, like you said, this Sajar guy, he's not a dud champion like we get, is he? He's a solid champion. And
he's coming over here to win the title.
Yeah, if McDonnell wins, then I don't think he'll be one of these flash in the pan champions.
I think he'll go on to...
he'll go on to big things, won't he?
A good few defences, I think.
A good few defences and maybe a unification fight. I don't think he's going to be a champion like Gavin Rees was, where he won the title and then he lost it straight away in his next defence, and he's not really been there, apart from the fight with Broner, he's not been really anywhere near a world title since, has he?
No. Rees did well, but you look at Rees now, he made that rare move of moving down from junior welter to light.
Yeah.
He's obviously very weak at the weight, so,
Yeah. What I mean is, though, I don't think...
He did well to get to that level,
I don't think that'll be... If McDonnell wins, I don't think that'll be McDonnell's fate, if you get what I mean. He's not going to be one of these guys who just...
He'll make a good few defences that range if he wins.
Yeah, he's not going to...
I think he might be one of those fighters who really pushes on the level after he wins the title. The world title's the making of him.
Yeah, exactly, just like Ricky Burns, because, like you said, he's won a world title and he's not looked back since. He's looked better in every fight, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He's steady improvement with every fight, and that's what he asked for. Relatively young boxer.
I'd love what's happened to Ricky Burns to happen to Jamie McDonnell as well, because it would just be great for British boxing, wouldn't it?
It is, yeah. I don't think that people were saying about Burns, you know, people were talking about that Broner fight like it was a formality for Broner. I don't think it would have been.
I don't think so either.
If you look at Broner, he always comes in overweight, so he's used to being the stronger fighter.
Ricky Burns is a strong guy.
To push Burns round. I think Burns is a lot stronger than him and more physical.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Burns has beat him, but I'm not entirely convinced by Broner yet. And as you say, you know, this is the kind of thing that I hope to see from Jamie McDonald should he win the title.
Yeah, he'll win the world title and he'll make it his own.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not just going to win the world title so we can have a few photos with it.
No. He wants that belt. He wants it, and he wants to be known as a world champion.
Yeah, I hope so. But my heart says that he'll win, but my head tells me he'll lose.
Yeah, I think the same with me. I do think Sehar will win.
I think Sehar will win, but if I'm proven wrong, then I'll be made up to be proven wrong. We mentioned Ricky Burns. He's going to fight Gonzalez as well on the same night.
Gonzalez. Don't know much about him. He got a win over former welterweight champion Pepino Cuevas' son, Pepino Cuevas Jr. But I don't think he's any particular.
Much cop, yeah.
No, I think Gonzalez is one of those fighters who's been elevated to world championship level purely because he's Puerto Rican, and so is the WBO.
Yeah, the WBO. There's a lot of people with positions in the WBO that they shouldn't have, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the WBO are famous for promoting a dead guy to number one in the rankings a few years ago.
Oh, what was that guy's name?
Oh, I can't remember.
Oh, we won't sour his memory then, but yeah.
No, it was, well, he'd been dead about 6 months and he was moving up in the rankings.
Oh my.
You know, so it shows you what the rankings actually mean.
Of all the organisations, none of the governing bodies are particularly very good, but I think the WBO is maybe the worst of a bad bunch, aren't they?
Yeah, Darren Morris, the guy's name was.
Darren Morris.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
May he rest in peace.
Thinking of that.
May he rest in peace with his number one ranking.
Yeah, well that's it, he's the unbeaten contender.
Yeah, I think the reason he's got the number one, this Gonzalez guy, is because he's got some Mickey Mouse Latino title. Do you know what I mean? That looks
like
that looks like a kid's toy. Do you get what I mean? It's one of these belts that really means nothing, but he's defended it a couple of times, and by default, it means he's got a ranking that he doesn't deserve. Do you like these international belts where if you win one, you're automatically in the top 10?
Yeah, I don't agree with all that.
I don't agree with them either, but he's got his hands on one of them, and because he's made some defences, then he's very, very slowly gone up the rankings, and now he's got his way to Ricky Burns mandatory. They've got one common opponent, haven't they? That Laria guy.
Joseph Laria, the Ghanaian, yeah.
Yeah, the Ghanaian. I think Ricky Burns had no problems with him.
Burns forced him, I think he retired in 7 against Burns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Gonzalez knocked him out in 3.
When did he fight? Like, was it before Burns or was it after Burns?
It was after Burns. Fought him in July of 2012. And Gonzalez fought Laria, and I think it was around about October, November 2011 when he fought Burns.
Well, that was when Burns was super featherweight champion, wasn't he?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and I know Ricky Burns got a lot of stick when he was super featherweight champion for fighting people he shouldn't be fighting.
Yeah.
So maybe that Laria guy kind of falls in that bracket. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Laria's not a bad contender. You know, he was a fighter who, when you think about it, Burns should have been fighting, I felt, at that point. You know, build his level up, build himself up as a champion.
Yeah.
You know, but the interesting thing about Gonzalez is that he isn't even the top ranked lightweight in Puerto Rico.
Oh my.
That's a guy called Luis Cruz.
What rank?
Another one who's not lost to anybody of any great quality. I think that sort of sums it up.
Yeah, it does, to be honest. I can understand Ricky Burns taking this fight, to be honest, because he had the fight with Vasquez that he got himself up for, and it fell through. And he's not fought in a while, has he? I think since...
Not fought since September the 21st, I think, when he fought Kevin Mitchell.
Yeah, and he's quite... Before that, he was quite an active fighter, wasn't he?
Yeah, you know, he's one of those fighters who likes to fight, yeah.
Yeah, so he's got to just...
you know, it's nearly 8 months out.
Yeah, he's got to get himself back in the feel of things, because he had a lot of training camps that came to nothing because he had his fallouts and his problems with Frank Warren. So he's taking this fight not as an easy fight or a keep.
It's a mandatory
Yeah.
defense as well.
Not
wait for another 18 months.
Yeah, not an easy fight or a keep busy fight, but just as a all right, let's just
Shake off the ring rust.
exactly, yeah, let's get this fight out the way, sort of fight, and let's get himself firing again. Because after he beats Gonzalez, which I think he will, I'm not maybe aware of that wrong. If he beats Gonzalez, because I don't want to disrespect him, which I expect he will, then I wouldn't like to see him fight someone like Gavin Rees or Crawler, which is what's been mentioned, because those two are going to fight, and there's a lot of rumours going around that Eddie Hearn wants to put the winner of that fight against Ricky Burns. I'd like to see him go for Vasquez again after that fight,
I'd like to
because
see him fight Vasquez, yeah.
that's definitely a makeable fight, isn't it? It's not one that's kind of just been lost.
No, it's it's certainly one that Vasquez seems to want.
Yeah.
So if Vasquez wants it, there's no reason
it can't happen. Yeah.
Can't happen. Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting that Martin Gethin's got about, hasn't he? He's got a championship decider.
Has he?
Yeah, he's fighting an IBF eliminator. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good. That's a spanner in the works, isn't it?
Yeah, on the 31st of May, he's fighting. I can't remember the guy's name. Mexican.
Is it in Mexico? Is it?
It is. No, it's in Warsaw.
Walls?
It's not Mexican. He's Panamanian. Diaz. And if Diaz's guy's name is.
Well, if it's over here, then he could win that, couldn't he? Definitely.
Yeah, it's not. And that's to fight. Vasquez. So.
I suppose.
As you say, that's a potential spanner in the works. But if Gethin is to beat Vasquez,
yeah,
that'd be a massive fight on the domestic scene, wouldn't it?
It would be a massive fight, yeah. I'd like to see Burns keep on for the unification fights, is what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't want to. He's had his as you said, he's had the fights where he's kind of established himself at his level when he fought Nicky Cook and Lariat. I feel like he's past that now. He should really go for the mega fights with the. I don't think the Broner fight. I think that's gone now. But the fights with Vasquez and the fights with Abril and the fights with other really big names in America, he should try and go for them now to build himself up and get some money in his pocket and build his legacy.
I think he'd beat anyone at lightweight, Ricky Burns.
It's hard to argue with that, isn't it? Because he's looked great.
I think he's a dominant lightweight out there. And as I said earlier, I think he'd have given Broner more problems than what people would have given him credit for.
Yeah, I don't think he gets the credit, Ricky Burns, does he? Because he absolutely blew away Kevin Mitchell, didn't he?
Yeah, I actually think Mitchell's still a pretty decent level fighter.
So do I. A lot of people are trying to run Mitchell down now, saying...
I just think Mitchell is not... I think when Mitchell steps up above a certain level, that's it for him, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I still think there's something about Kevin Mitchell.
Yeah.
What I mean is, though, if any other champion, like Broner or Vasquez or Abril, had beaten Kevin Mitchell the way Ricky Burns beat him, I think everyone would be going nuts. Sort of thing, saying, I never thought that would happen, sort of thing. But just because it was Ricky Burns, people were like kind of trying to brush under the carpet, sort of thing. Maybe not so much Brits, but kind of Americans, sort of thing. They were kind of saying, but Ricky Burns has not fought anybody like Broner has. It was like, I don't think Kevin Mitchell would beat Broner, but I think he'd have given Broner a good fight. I think Kevin Mitchell is definitely a solid top, maybe 12 or 15 lightweight in the world.
Yeah, I think Mitchell's better than the likes of Crawler, Rees and Matthews.
I do as well, yeah.
I think he's a level above them.
Yeah.
Look how he handled John Murray.
He did, yeah, and I liked John Murray before that fight, but...
He handled Murray better than Brandon Rios did.
Exactly, yeah. Kevin Mitchell, he's absolutely not a mug, like people are trying to make out. And if anyone else had beaten up Kevin Mitchell the way Ricky Burns did, then...
The world would have been taking notice.
Yeah, and Ricky Burns proved really, I think, arrived, if that's the right way of that fight. He proved that he's not a protected champion. He's not a champion who's just going to fight no marks. He's a champion who's going to fight really solid opponents, and he's going to make the step up. Because
and he will do that, and hopefully he'll do that.
Yeah, this Gonzalez, I'm not going to I'm not going to call it a formality, but I don't see him beating Ricky Burns. I really don't.
I don't know,
to be honest. I think it's more. I think the big talking point really is how is Ricky Burns going to handle him? Is he just going to look to blast him out really quick, like he did with Kevin Mitchell? or is he going to take his time and get the rounds in?
I think he'll take his time and get the rounds, and I think he'll either be a late stoppage or a very convincing points victory.
Yeah, I agree with that, because again, he's had a couple of months, he's had a bit longer than he'd have liked out the ring, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I think he's been frustrated. You can tell he's just desperate to fight, can't you?
Yeah.
He's desperate to get in the ring and put a show on. His fans who've paid a lot of money for the Vasquez fights and the Liam Walsh fights, and then they never happened, he'll want to repay them, sort of thing. He'll want to put a show on for them.
Yeah, especially in front of his home. I think it's the first fight at that new Emirates Arena as well.
Yeah, in Scotland, he'll want to give his fans a night out, sort of thing. He'll want to give them a couple of some rounds, like maybe. I think he'll stop it in maybe the 8th or the 9th.
Yeah.
Again, I think after 8 or 9, I can see Gonzalez kind of maybe not continuing, sort of thing. Or the fight will be stopped, and he's not going to. I think he could, if he wanted to, go out and try and go all guns blazing. But I personally don't think he will. I think he'll want to get the round under his belt, kind of put a show on for his fans, get his ring rust off, and kind of personally get himself back on the wagon, sort of thing.
Well, that's it, yeah. You know, like you're saying, it's a fight comes against his back this year. You've got to go
back into the field of things.
And back for when he fights the bigger fighters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the way I was trying to describe it. A fight that will set him up perfectly for a really, really big fight. Because if he just knocks this Gonzalez guy out in the first couple of rounds and then he went straight into a big fight with Vasquez, then that's not really the preparation you want. No. Because he'd have only had a few rounds in a year, wouldn't he?
To be fair though, Ricky Burns looks like the kind of fighter who keeps himself in shape.
Definitely, yeah.
Outside of fights as well, so I don't think, and I know his sparring sessions are pretty brutal and tough as well. So,
yeah.
I don't think ring rust would be a problem for him. I think he's one fighter, but I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
You step up a level, you want to fight better fighters, don't you?
Yeah.
You want to keep yourself active.
You want good preparation, don't you? And have a good solid win before you go into that a big fight like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him fight Vasquez or a Richard or whatever, Abril, the WBA champion. I can't say his name. Instead of fighting Gavin Rees or Crawler, and that's not a knock on them. I think Ricky Burns he deserves a big fight against Vasquez.
Yeah,
or Abril.
He's earned his call now.
Yeah, he's earned his chance to step up and unify a title instead of defending them in routine defences.
Yeah,
sort of thing. Yeah, definitely. So I think he'll stop Gonzalez in the 8th or 9th again.
I wouldn't surprise with all that, no.
No. Alright, there's a good fight on the undercard, isn't there? John Simpson.
John Simpson against Troy Sevenfjorda, yeah. That'll be while it lasts, that'll be one to really watch. But Sevenfjorda dismantled Derry Matthews.
Yeah, I remember watching that a couple of years ago.
Not
for the WBU title, that was, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. At Super Feather, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And so it'd be interesting to see how Simpson, who lost to Matthews, will face. I mean, I saw Simpson up close at on the Ricky Burns Kevin Mitchell card when he fought Guy Davis, and he looked good. He looked sharp. I like John Simpson. He's a decent bloke, and he's a good fighter, good standard fighter, and I'd like to see him do well.
Yeah.
I think Choi's about 42 now, I think.
Yeah, he's getting on, isn't he?
And I think Simpson will have too much run. He'll outpoint him.
I do as well, personally. That Choi, I'm not even going to try and say his surname. I can't pronounce it.
Sevenfjorda.
Say it again.
Sevenfjorda.
I can't. I'll just call him Choi.
Yeah, that's what everyone calls him.
Yeah. He's a throwback, isn't he? He's a
he's a good tough. He trains hard, he fights hard. He's not scared to take a punch. He's one of the fighters who, I don't know why, he should have been receiving more national TV exposure because he's always in a good fight.
He's a good scrapper, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He'll always give us the best he can and stuff like.
Yeah. He's been in a couple of good mini wars, hasn't he? He's been in prize fights a couple of times, hasn't he?
Yeah, he lost to Matthews in his last prize fight, I think.
Yeah. But in every fight I've seen him in, which is about 5 or 6, he's not won them all, but he's always give value for money, and that's exactly why they've got this fight on the undercard, Simpson versus Choi, to give people value for money, and to have a good little scrap for people to kind of get the blood pumping.
Well, yeah, he's been in some decent fights. He's been Reece Roberts when he won the prize fight of the other year.
Yeah.
you know, Reece Roberts is no more.
Exactly, yeah. Choi, he's, like you said though, he's, how old's John Simpson? I know he's younger than Choi, but...
John Simpson's about 33, I think he was.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good little scrap that.
29 actually, sorry.
29. Yeah, I think, like you said though, he'll have far more left in the tank than Choi will.
Yeah.
To be honest, Choi, for his credit, he's a good battler, and I don't think he'll be stopped because he's just too tough. But I think as the rounds go on, especially when he's been fighting in Prize Fighter, which are only 3 rounders. Is this a 12-round fight? Yeah.
Yeah, but his last fight was a 12-rounder.
Did he go 12 rounds? Did he?
He did, yeah, with Howard Jordan, who's a Filipino contender.
Oh, fair enough then. That's improving.
Not the unanimous decision to him, but that's no shame.
Yeah, what the point I was making is, I think I can see it where it'll be a really good scrap for the first 4 or 5, but then after that I can see maybe Simpson sweeping the second half of the fight.
Yeah, I think I'd go along with that.
Yeah, that was my point. I think Choi won't have as much in the tank as Simpson will, and Simpson will
pull away in the later rounds.
We'll pull away, and we'll probably get a 116 or a 117-11 decision.
Yeah, that's it. By about 5 or 6 rounds. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's definitely one I'm going to watch. I'm not going to miss that for the world because that's going to be a good scrap.
Local fight of Rocky Fielding on the undercard as well.
Rocky Fielding on the undercard. I saw him a few weeks ago on the Bellew undercard. But
he looked good against Reed, didn't he?
Yeah, knocked him out in 6, I think.
Yeah, I was up at his dad's gym last Tuesday talking to his dad, Tosh.
Who's he fighting?
He's very raring to go now.
Yeah, in his last fight, I don't know if it was just me, but I thought maybe he kind of his stamina was a bit of an issue a little bit. Maybe I know he had trouble at the weigh-in because it was off the weigh-in, and he I think he had to strip naked, didn't he, to make the weight?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe. It was about 6 rounds, but he looked to be puffing a little bit. So hopefully, I think it might be because he had problems with the weight. Didn't he? Because he's a very.
He's trained hard for this one, you know.
Yeah, I think
he's got Tony Dodson's fighting Paul Smith in the British super middleweight title.
That's down in Wembley, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, he'd be looking to fight one of them.
Yeah.
The winner of that fight, I think.
That'll be great, back. But what I was saying is, I think, yeah, you said he's had a great training camp. I think maybe the last fight against Reed, he was caught in a bit of the routine mode sort of thing. He left it a bit late to get the weight off.
Yeah.
And it came back, and it didn't cost him the fight, but he kind of his stamina took a bit of a hit, and I don't think that'll be a problem this time.
No,
if you said he's on it now.
This time.
Yeah, he's trained properly, and he's absolutely 100% this time, and I expect him to impress. To be honest,
I think he'll win. Whoever he's fighting.
I'd love to see him fight Paul Smith or Tony Dodson, definitely.
I would definitely a massive fight in Liverpool. To put that on the top of the ability Echo Arena and put on a few other fighters as well.
Yeah.
Like Paul Butler, getting over here.
Yeah, he was great the other night, a few weeks ago, wasn't
he? Kevin Satchel, maybe, Jazz even.
Yeah, Kevin Satchel's on the price undercard, isn't he?
He's fighting in Butcher, Scotland, yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing him.
I like Kevin Satchel.
I like Kevin. I think he's got magic dust. That's the right word. I think
he's got the potential to win a world championship. Yeah, definitely.
He's definitely one to keep your eye out for, isn't he?
Yeah,
definitely.
There's a big bill at the Olympia, isn't it, on the 24th?
Yeah.
I'm hopefully going to that. Jazza Dickens is fighting Di Davis for the Celtic Masters title.
That sounds like an amazing title. I've never even heard of that.
It's these titles now. They're just fees into the governing
piece of jewellery. Aren't they really?
The Dingo's nearly going bust anyway. The British Boxing Board of Control.
Oh, are they?
Apparently, yeah.
Apparently. Ooh. We'll keep an eye. I didn't know that, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Allegedly. Don't want to accuse them or anything. Alright, final fight we'll ever talk about is probably the biggest one of this month. It's Froch and Kessler, isn't it?
Yeah, it's...
Froch could be fight of the year, that.
It could be, yeah. I mean, the first fight back in 2010 was a contender for fight of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the scorecard... I thought Froch won that fight. But the scorecard was ridiculous. You know, you could have scored maybe 2 rounds either way, but scorecards of 117, 110 and 116, 112. think showed the bias
Yeah.
in the Danish scoring in Denmark that day.
Yeah, as Carl Froch says all the time, he's the David Beckham of Denmark, isn't he?
Yeah.
Kessler, he's a big star over there. So
He's a big, massive name in Denmark.
there's no way anyone's going to beat him on the scorecards in Denmark. No. But yeah, it's a massive one. It's a massive fight, this, and I'm going to lean towards Froch because Froch has improved so much since the first fight, hasn't he?
He has, yeah.
Because
the big thing is, Froch has fought 44 rounds since they last fought. Kessler's only fought 13, and Kessler's had that injury to the oblique muscle of his eye.
Yeah, that was a bad injury, that one.
That could go again at any time.
I think he was knocked down as well by Alan Green, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
So, I think that's a good point. I think Kessler, he's definitely more battle-worn, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah,
he's 2 years younger.
He's 2 years younger, but he's been at weight level longer than Froch has, hasn't he?
He has, yeah.
So, maybe those fights kind of took the plug out of him a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Calzaghe fight was quite a tough fight for both of them. The Andre Ward fight was a tough fight for him. The one with Alan Green was a bit of a war. You know, the only easy fight that was an easy fight that recently was against Brian McGee last year.
Yeah, and he knocked Brian McGee out in the third, I think, with a body shot.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be a walk in the park for Carl Froch at all, but I think maybe he's just got, especially because it's in England as well, and he'll have a big crowd. I think he'll have a bit more in the tank than Kessler will.
I think so. I think he'll either win by a narrow decision, or unanimous but close, or he might stop him late due to eye injuries and
Yeah, cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saying that though, he's had some good sparring, hasn't he? Kessler for this.
He's been sparring
cleverly
and
Groves.
Yeah.
Which.
And whereas Froch's sparring apparently hasn't been anywhere near that level.
Do you know who he spars a lot with Tony Bellew? Has he sparred with him for this one?
I don't think so, because I don't think with Bellew fighting, I think it's he's been fighting a cruiserweight. I saw the guy's name earlier. I can't remember, it's gone.
Carl, I've heard he spars with Callum Smith as well. I'm not sure if he'll spar with him. Yeah, but still, I think this could be Carl Froch's biggest night, to be honest. He could win. I personally I'm gonna say he wins a decision. Personally, I think Kessler is just so tough and so strong that even if he is badly cut, I think he'll make it over the line, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he'll have enough. I don't think, because you can argue that in his two biggest fights of his career to date, he's been found wanting at the end of it.
Yeah, against Warden.
I don't think he'll want that to happen for the third time. I think he'll want to try and cement his legacy, and I think he'll have enough in the end.
Yeah, but I think Froch has only ever been knocked down once, hasn't he, against Jermaine Taylor?
Yeah, but he was staggered by Dirrell, wasn't he? Dirrell and by Ward.
By Ward, yeah.
But he didn't go down, and he
exactly. Yeah, I think the thing about Froch is he's got great inner steel, hasn't he? Great mental strength. He can get in a war and he can survive a war.
Yeah,
and Kessler can as well, to be fair. But I think
Kessler, they're both tough fighters.
But they're both real hard knocks, aren't they? Throwbacks. So I think I think it's for me it's a 55-45 fight.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that if it's in England, it's in England, and because Froch has got all that momentum because he knocked out Boutte and he had it was a cakewalk against Yusuf Mack, wasn't it? I think he's just absolutely booming with confidence, isn't he?
He is, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how much Kessler plays on British heritage for this fight. Because I know he's not got a lot of fans over for this fight. He's only got around 500 fans over.
Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah, they paid a cock up with the ticket advertising apparently. So only between 500 and 750 fans have managed to get tickets for it.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought he was going to bring a good few thousand over, like the Salens were saying.
I think that's been cocked up.
Oh, well, that's interesting, that then.
Yeah.
If it was over in Denmark again, then I'd lean towards Kessler again, to be honest, because I leaned towards Kessler the first time. But the fact that it's in England and that Froch is before the Boutte fight, Froch was he was known, but he wasn't known like David Haye and Amir Khan are known. Where he?
No,
he was a dark horse, wasn't he? But ever since that big win against Boutte on Sky Sports, I think he's really kind of he's opened himself up to the public, hasn't he? A lot of people know who Carl Froch is now.
He is, yeah. Froch, he deserves to be more widely known because he's
The warrior, isn't he?
British fighters with with that run of fights that he's had over the last 3-4 years. He's a personable guy. He's likeable when you see him being interviewed.
He's honest, isn't he? No BS.
Honest, he's got the pretty missus who can,
yeah.
Tickets. And he's got the family guy image. He's got his 2 kids. It's always surprised me why he hasn't been able to sell more.
Yeah.
Of who he is.
Yeah, but
hopefully now being under Eddie Hearn, they seem to be working on that.
Yeah, definitely.
His biggest asset is the fact that he's just like, he's like everybody else, Carl Froch.
Yeah. I think the reason he kind of struggled for a while to get his image across was because he was with Mick Hennessy for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Mick Hennessy, when Froch won the title, Mick Hennessy was having a lot of problems, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He lost the ITV deal,
yeah.
and he had no real outlet. And by the time Hennessy got the Channel 5 deal, Carl Froch had already moved on, hadn't he?
Yeah, he had, yeah.
Carl Froch needed a big platform to kind of get himself well known, and unfortunately Hennessy couldn't provide it for him. And Eddie Hearn can. And I think that's why Carl Froch, he's kind of... Before he fought Boutte, there were only boxing fans who knew Carl Froch. I think a lot of casual sport fans now know Carl Froch because he's mentioned on Talk Sport and stuff like that. He's in the back of newspapers now, which he wasn't necessarily before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it now, yeah. But that's what happens when you get a good team with a good publicist working for them.
Exactly.
Who has good contacts in the press.
Yeah.
There's one thing the Hearns can do, they can sell things.
A good point you mentioned to me though when we were talking last time was his missus has just had a baby, hasn't she?
Yes, she has. Yeah, she just had a little girl about 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
So do you think that could play with his head?
It possibly could, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in your training camp. You can't give 100% concentration on your camp when your missus is so close to giving birth. I think.
Definitely. Yeah.
Boxing becomes less of a priority, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he's professional enough to get through it, to work through that then.
I suppose, yeah, but I've read his autobiography, which is a great read, and last time he fought Kessler, I think it was just before his wife gave birth to his first baby, just before, and
yeah.
he said in his book, he admitted it, he said that the fact that his wife was so heavily pregnant, it played with his head a little bit, and it affected his concentration. And hopefully that doesn't happen this time. But if it's happened once, then you can't help but wonder: is he going to be on it on fight night?
But there was other distractions in that first fight as well.
Yeah, there was the Ash Cloud, which he's mentioned a lot, isn't it?
Which I'll let you try and pronounce the name of the.
Oh no, I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to try. Seriously, I'll embarrass myself even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot.
I'm not going to attempt it now. No.
Yeah, there was Carl Froch, but like I said though, I think he's great mental strength, hasn't he? Great inner steel,
yeah.
Great inner steel, which a lot of fighters wish they had, sort of thing. And I think maybe he might just have enough. He might just be all right. You never know; it could work in the opposite this time. The fact that he's got a new baby could spur him on even more and make him even more determined to win for his family. So yeah, I really hope he beats Kessler because I think that will be his career-defining night, sort of thing. It'll be the night where he finally gets everyone on side because, again, he's not really got the coverage he deserves for a lot of his career. And I think after this fight, he will get it. Everyone will. Yeah. This is controversial, but I personally think he's got a better legacy than Joe Calzaghe. Personally, because I think he's fought better opposition than Joe. I think he's fought better opposition than Joe Calzaghe.
Yes, yeah.
But if you say who's the best super middleweight, almost everyone says Joe Calzaghe, don't they? And I think this will be the fight where afterwards a lot of people will start saying, no, it's not Joe Calzaghe, it's Carl Froch.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Calzaghe. I don't think he spent most of his career.
He wasted most of his career, didn't he?
Like Cabri Al-Salam and other such non-entities when he could have been facing the likes of Roy Jones Jr. Who he had no intention of fighting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think this will be the night where Carl Froch kind of steps out of the shadow of Calzaghe, sort of thing, and kind of announces himself and says, you know what, I'm Britain's top super middleweight. I'm better than Calzaghe, and I'm better than all the other guys.
Yeah,
If
as long
he-
as you don't see him on a Strictly Come Dancing or whatever.
Oh, I hope not. No. If he, we'll just talk about it briefly. If he beats Kessler, well, let's just assume he does. Who would you like to see him fight afterwards? Because there's a lot of. He keeps saying he wants to fight Ward again. There's Hopkins who's piping up now, says he wants to fight Carl Froch. Who would you like to see him fight?
If you take Hopkins out of the equation, I'd like to see him fight someone like De Gale or Groves.
Yeah, it's a good shout, that, isn't it?
Even Stieglitz.
Yeah, Groves is. I don't know what's happening with De Gale. He's kind of went under the radar, hasn't he? But
He's fighting next week, I think it is, in Canada.
is that on TV?
I think it might be on Channel 5.
I hope so, because I know Hennessy and Channel 5 are kind of. I don't know what's happening with them, sort of thing, because.
They're on and off again, aren't they?
They are, yeah. We didn't know what was happening with the Fury fight till the last minute, did we?
No.
So I hope that's on Channel 5, but I think George Groves is a lot closer to Carl Froch than De Gale is right now.
Yeah, I think De Gale's the more naturally talented fighter of the two.
I do as well, personally.
I don't think he's got the guts.
Yeah, I like De Gale, personally. It's that he really needs to crack on, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think Groves, there's a lot of people saying Groves is going to fight Stieglitz, aren't they?
Yeah, that'd be a good fight.
Yeah, so if he fought Stieglitz and beat Stieglitz, then I could definitely see Carl Froch fighting Groves.
Yeah.
But even if the Kessler fight is competitive enough, I wouldn't mind seeing a third one. A third fight, a trilogy.
Well, yeah, that's, say boxing, you can always...
Always have a great rivalry, can't you?
A couple more trilogies, like classic trilogies.
Yeah, if he stops Kessler, then I can't see it. But if it's just like the first fight where it's really, really nip and tuck and it's close, and Carl Froch just edges it because it's in England, then I wouldn't mind seeing a third fight in maybe America or somewhere on neutral ground. Yeah. I don't want to see him fight Andre Ward again, to be honest.
No, I don't think there's anything in it for. But Ward seems to be calling him out again.
I think because Ward knows there's no other big fight for him, really.
Yeah.
Because Ward's so good that no one apart from Froch really wants to fight him.
Or can bring out the best in him.
Yeah. But if he did, I don't care if it happens in Carl Froch's back garden. He will not beat Andre Ward. I just don't see it.
Not in a month of Sundays.
No, not at all. So.
No.
I think he's best doing the same. I think he's best doing with Andre Ward the same as Khan with Garcia. Kind of just forget it now, close the book on that, and move on, because that loss won't define his career. So it shouldn't do anyway, in my opinion.
No, it shouldn't. No,
it shouldn't. No.
You got to look at his performances against the likes of Jermaine Taylor, Jean Pascal,
Bute, yeah,
Bute, Abraham.
Those will be the fights people remember him for.
That's the fights I remember him for.
Yeah. Just because he's not unbeaten like Joe Calzaghe doesn't mean that he's any less a fighter.
No.
Because, like we said, even though Joe Calzaghe was unbeaten, I still think even now, before the Kessler fight, Froch has got a better legacy than him. But this Kessler fight will put the exclamation point on it. Do you know what I mean?
In my eyes, Kessler and Hopkins are the only live opponents that Calzaghe really fought.
Yeah, and even then, there's a lot of people who don't think he beat Hopkins, isn't there?
I don't think he did, no.
Yeah. Well,
you look at it, fights, looking at opponents, I'm just looking at a list of opponents. Peter Manfredo.
Is that the guy from The Contender?
Yeah. Evans Ashira.
No, never heard of him.
Some Armenian guy with a basically unpronounceable name. Enger and Kirchian.
For Chris Eubank, and Chris Eubank was old and past it, yeah.
Aaron Mitchell, he decked him, didn't he?
Yeah.
Tucker Pudwill. The names here, they're not ones that
Yeah, ever since Carl Froch has won the world title, he's fought world class opposition, hasn't he? I think the only blip was Yusuf Mack, wasn't it? But everyone else he's fought since he won the title from Pascal has been a top fighter, haven't he?
Yeah, but if anybody deserves a gimme fight, it was
Froch, yeah.
Carl Froch, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the point. I think he'll beat Kessler personally, and once he does, he'll kind of really announce himself, and he'll write his name in British boxing history, and people will remember him.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Forever.
He deserves to be known as one of the best British fighters.
Yeah, so I really hope Carl Froch does it on the night. I'll get it done. And like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing a third fight with Kessler if the second fight's close enough. But yeah. I wouldn't fight Andre Ward personally. I think he should let that go.
It seems like he wants it, so.
Yeah, I think his pride hurts more than anything. It's his pride, but because he's a very, very proud fella. But I think there's just sometimes you just have to swallow the poison, don't you? and just admit, okay, I'm never going to beat him, but I'm not going to let that night and that loss define my career, because no one else kind of lets that define his career. So I don't think he should either.
As you say, it's his pride.
Yeah. So I think we've covered everything, really, haven't we, mate? Do you want to talk about the prediction league?
Yeah, it's just we've been on a little prediction league for the last 2 weeks. Paul's not doing too well.
I'm not, no.
No, we've got about 18 members, and you know.
Do you want to give
don't have any dropouts yet. It's normally the first couple of weeks where people drop out.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to give the website just so if anyone wants to join it? Because it's really good.
It's on my blog page. The details are on my blog page. I'll reblog it today, so it'll be near the top. My blog page is Wartoes Straight Right.
All right, get on that, everyone, because it's great. Great predict every single week. You pick your rounds and what fighter you're going to pick to win. And
if you get the exact rounds, or if you get one of the scorecards correct.
It's just like fantasy football league, isn't it? You pick your team.
There's a prize at the end as well.
Ooh, I hope I win that, but I've got no chance judging on my picks.
Side tickets to any street fight of your choice.
Okay.
No, it's a DVD collection for classic fights.
Oh, I'll definitely go for that then. The street fight's not for me personally, but I'll definitely go for the DVD. So yeah, definitely get on that, because it's absolutely brilliant. It's just like fantasy football league. It's just that instead of picking your favourite football players, you pick which boxers you think are going to win in the upcoming fights. Yeah. Absolutely great, mate. Thanks for coming on and speaking to me.
Okay, mate, anytime.
Absolutely, mate. I've really enjoyed this. Thanks for bearing with me after what happened
no worries, mate.
last time. Great talking to you. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Ta-ra.
Ta-ra.